Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. What a week of Chargers football. Perhaps last week, one of the most news-busy days of Chargers training camp. This week, the most busy practice day week of Chargers training camp. Chargers practicing 6 times, including a walkthrough tonight on a battleship. I assume that's the Midway, but yeah, it was not specified. But man, what a week of Chargers football. First day of pads. It feels good, Tyler. It feels like we are officially back to Chargers football after the pads came on today.
It's so nice. I was just explaining to my friend, he came in to visit today, like what the summer is like when there's nothing and no football. And I'm so excited that it felt like we just blinked and suddenly we're back here with like actual football in training camp. It feels so good. And some of these players, especially the young players, they're playing outstanding. And I know it's practice. I get that, but it's the first hint at what this could look like, especially in year 2 with Harbaugh, but specifically with these Ortiz draft picks. I'm just excited, man.
Yeah, it's a great time. Training camp, as always, is a ton of fun. I can't wait to get back to the Bolt next Monday. Going down to USD sounds really fun. It seems like the people who did get to go today had a great time. So it should be a fun conversation about practice today. Obviously, we'll have a certain retirement that we will talk about today as well. A busy couple weeks for retirement, but we're going to end the show that way in honor of, obviously, Phillip Rivers. So we'll get to that here in a second. Before we begin, of course, I have to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. Whatever sport floats your boat, whether that is basketball, football. Obviously, you guys listening love football. Even if you're a baseball fan, basketball season might be over. But the action does not stop on Prize Picks because baseball is just heating up. Make sure and step up to the plate with Prize Picks and add your favorite baseball players to your lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, make your call with more or less and play for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Again, that is 2,000 times your cash today. So if you think Shohei Ohtani will get more than 1 home run this week, Juan Soto for more than 1 hit, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this baseball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Best way to do this is to go to whatever app store you use, download the app Prize Picks, use the code GUILTY at checkout. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is $50 instantly with the code GUILTY after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, let's get to some training camp takeaways. Again, first day of pads. Perhaps one of the more meaningful days of training camp in general because the guys just have so much more extra juice. And Derwin James talked about this. Everybody was so excited to just get out there and hit one another instead of running routes on air and things like that. So perhaps one of the most noteworthy day. And you mentioned some of these younger players playing well. I think that's the right place to start today. Mr. Keandre Lambert-Smith highlighted with the catch of the day, in one-on-one situations. Trey Harris has looked apart. Justin Herbert spoke very glowingly about him today. Kamani Vidal working with the first team. We've talked about Oronde Gadsden as 2 potential day 3 picks. And then, man, Omari Hampton has put on the pads once, but the beat reporters cannot be more positive about Mr. Omari Hampton, their current running back 1. So you have titled this slide, Tyler, Ortiz cooked again. And I think we are en route to that being true.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. And by the way, like they have Ladd McConkey and Joe Walt, these 2024 guys that they brought in last year who are established and very good. But
yeah,
I mean, it's been a bit of a tricky offseason because in March, we're hoping for maybe a trade or a bigger name, a more significant X receiver. And they opt to do none of that. And they go with Mike Williams. Okay. But they go into the draft. They bring in Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Oronde Gadsden. These are names. Some we like more than others. Some are going to play more than others. But like, what can they do? How are they going to be in this offense? And then Mike Williams retires. And we're going, fuck, like what are we going to do?
Shit.
Yeah, like this really sucks. Okay, so now what?
Yeah.
Well, what is that these offensive players, and I get that it's training camp, they are stepping up, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch these guys, in particular with Justin Herbert, and a lot of the times with the ones, really, really start to come together. I know some of it, of course, like we mentioned, the retirement, and yes, Najee Harris is also like on the NFI. So maybe if both those guys were out there, you don't get to see these guys as much with Herbert, but they're not. And so you get to see these guys.
Yeah.
True to Herbert form, like these guys are doing well with Herbert because these guys, Justin Herbert said, like Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, sometimes with rookies, they don't know where to go. The routes aren't crisp, yada, yada, yada. With these guys, that is not the case. Sure. Do I have some questions about, like, say, a Keandre Lambert-Smith or even a Trey Harris or Gadsden in a real game situation? Sure. They still have to answer those questions. But for right now, they are just crushing it. And defense is doing well too. In fact, better. We'll talk about that in a bit. But overall, these weapons, these young weapons in particular, are doing exactly what we'd hope to see from them. And you just feel so good about the future of this group. I kind of have been comparing them to like that Packers run where they just brought in 3 receivers and 2 tight ends and a running back. And just everybody just kind of grew with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Was their core. Are they all
Yeah.
great? No, but there's a core and that offense works. So I think, and I'm hoping the Chargers have that here with these receivers and these running backs.
Yeah, and obviously the Chargers have Ladd McConkey, who would be the best receiver in Green Bay. So that certainly helps, and he's having a fantastic camp as well. Jim Harbaugh said today that he has been uncoverable in training camp so far. I think when we talk about these young players, I think the thing, like for me personally, is that previously I have been so tricked with like being optimistic about day 3 picks and thinking that they would be impactful players right away. And so now I have just kind of trained my brain to like, okay, the day 3 picks, maybe one of them will play right away, and we'll just kind of have to assume that the other ones are going to get redshirt seasons. Maybe they even get cut. And some of that happened last year. Obviously, Brendan Rice basically did not contribute, and Cornelius Johnson was cut. Kamani Vidal, for how positive we felt about him, didn't exactly like play a ton either. So some of that is true and was true last season. But then Cam Hart and Tar Heap still happen. And I'm like, okay, like which is it? Is it the day 3 picks don't contribute, or do they contribute? And now with Keandre Lambert-Smith and Aranda Gadsden in particular, if they can hit, it just kind of shows again that Joe Ortiz knows a lot more football than we ever will. And in particular, like Aranda Gadsden, I wasn't a huge fan of. You weren't a huge fan of Keandre Lambert-Smith. But it just shows that like identifying traits and skill sets and characters, putting them in positive situations can really, really do so much good for them. And for all the grief that we have given the Chargers front office for, maybe not being a little bit more aggressive with wide receiver or interior offensive line, they can find these gems and turn them into good football players, obviously at a much higher clip than we are used to. And so there's a lot of football to be played left, obviously, but things are definitely trending in a much more positive direction for KLS and OG, as they say, in particular, which I think is obviously great news for this offense overall.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, with the DBs last year, we wouldn't have seen any of them. Like Asante Samuel, there's a world where Fulton and Asante Samuel Jr. and Jasir Taylor are your starting trio the entire year. And maybe they bench one of those guys at some point, but they, guys got hurt. And then we see these day 3 guys. Same thing this year with these guys. Unfortunately, Najee Harris with his situation, Rocket Sanders technically as well, not playing right now. Don't really know what's going on there. Mac Williams retiring. All right, you've got young guys. And that's the other thing. Joe Ortiz has given the Chargers so many at-bats that you do have so many bodies to bring in and try things out. Like maybe only 2 of the offensive weapons from this year work out. Hey, that's great. That's awesome. Like you tried it multiple times. And of course, they're not all going to work out, but you have so many at-bats, you're going to find guys. And that's why you're watching these highlights and, okay, there's the first team. There's the second. Like everybody. And, Rager's the guy they signed, obviously, Quentin Johnston from a different regime. But it's like you have QJ working. Rager's working. McConkey, you drafted. Fantastic. Joel, fantastic. Harris looks great. Gadsden, Vidal, like, holy cow. Like, just because of the sheer number of at-bats, they're doing well. But also, they've been finding, it seems, the guys that'll work with Greg Roman. I think Ladd McConkey's probably good in most situations, but
I
hey,
think so.
I'll
Yeah.
give them credit. He was very much so specifically good with Greg Roman. Again, I think he would have been fine anywhere else. Having Herbert does help, but he really worked for them. Joe Walt with this offense worked for them. And I think the more they keep, I feel very strongly that Hampton's going to work for them as well. Harris as well, definitely. Gadsden at least in his role. These guys are they're fitting, they're working, they're young, they're healthy, they're on rookie deals. Things are going to get a bit more expensive maybe for the Chargers, but because of the Rashawn Slater deal, obviously, that I hope we'll talk about, I guess.
Yeah.
But to have this many, I think, productive and exciting rookies is awesome.
Yeah, Aaron pointing out the coaching staff too, and perhaps the coach that I received the least positive feedback about when the Chargers hired him was Sanjay Lal.
Yep.
There's he had bounced around, and his work in Dallas wasn't super perceived very well, and then he goes to Jacksonville as part of the Urban Meyer coaching staff, which obviously we know did not work out super well. But man, are we really seeing the ability that he's had with this overall, the wide receiver group, and even getting a guy like Simi Fehoko last year, to be able to contribute in an effective way. And I think shows that Sanjay really knows how to work with his players and really knows how to get the most out of them. And when he said oh, Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith, they're kind of behind the curve. They're not where we want them to be, fitness level wise. And then you hear that they're not even getting reps with the first team offense for the first few bit of OTAs. I'm like, man, is Sanjay just being a little too stuck in his ways? But then training camp comes around, and these two young players, Quentin as well, which we'll get to in a second, they all seem like they're hitting the ground running. And again, it's training camp, but we're not used to this. We're not used to a fifth round rookie like Keandre Lambert-Smith missing most of the spring, coming into training camp and having a fantastic start to training camp. We haven't really seen stuff like this. So I'm not trying to overreact to training camp, but again, we talked about this on Saturday. You want to see players hit the ground running. And right now, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Aranda Gadsden in particular are doing that. And the other one obviously is Omarion Hampton, and Daniel Popper was talking about him last night and what he looks like in person. And Popper said juice with a capital J. He is big and physical and fast, and even without pads, his athleticism is definitely popping right now. So again, all positive signs. It's been 5 practices, but the young, weapons on the offense are having very strong camps to start, and it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, we are so used to, and it's partially because these players were as good as they were, but used to, okay, it's Keenan Allen, it's Mike Williams, for at least 4 years now, it was Josh Palmer, but generally it's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, those are your guys. So there's not really a new thing. It's always just kind of some day 3 guys. But we always had the receiver room kind of set with at least 2 guys and maybe a running back with either Gordon or Eckler. Not that it's great, but it's sort of been set. With this group, I don't know. With Telesco, it has not been automatic at all. Maybe it has been a fit issue, but when we're talking about Isaiah Spiller, they were not playing him. He could not pick up the playbook.
There was not a peep about Isaiah Spiller for 2 years.
Not a single word. I unless players were hurt or holding out or whatever, he wasn't even playing with the ones at all. Couldn't get work on special teams, nothing. I don't recall the Trey McKitty breakout practices. I think he's had 1 or 2, but I think he finished his last preseason with the Chargers with negative yards. It isn't always, it's not automatically great. And you usually don't see outside of the first round, second round for Telesco, obviously. And again, that's on the coaches too. Yeah. We want these hits. We're just all right, those are your stars. And everyone else is just maybe going to make the roster, maybe contribute. Everybody is just competing and they look great. They all have chemistry. It's incredible to see through your 2 years.
Yeah. Otto asking, has the scouting team grown under Ortiz? That's helping the Chargers make better selections. The scouting department has actually not changed that much. Obviously, Chad Alexander is part of it. There's one new main area scout. I believe there were some other, internal promotions and things like that. The scouting staff has not really changed that much. The process has changed a lot. Yeah. And you pointing out the coaching staff there is key. It felt like for so long, the Chargers would pick players that Telesco liked, and then like occasionally throw the coach a bone. Here's your Kenneth Murray, here's your Asante Samuel Jr. kind of thing. And then for the most part, he was like, I'm picking my players and you coach them. Whereas now with Ortiz and Harbaugh, the two are aligned. The two have the same vision. Obviously, Harbaugh has called them like Batman and Robin. So there's just a greater sense of alignment. There's a greater understanding of picking the kind of players that Harbaugh likes and that Roman likes and that Minter likes. So it's not that the coaching, the scouting staff has changed. The process has changed and the alignment with the coaching staff has changed. And I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. With Anthony Lynn, you look back on that era and it's like, with all the things Lynn wanted to do and like Gus Bradley wanted to do, where was the offense that Lynn wanted to run? What did Telesco do to get him that? Like, if you're going to be you want to run the ball 50 million times and you're that kind of team, where was that alignment? Wasn't there. And then the opposite, complete different pendulum swing happens with Brandon Staley. Telesco, to his credit, pretty much got Brandon Staley whoever he wanted. Like the players, like a lot of Staley guys, a lot of Staley type guys, you name it. Like you can blame Telesco for JC Jackson. Sure, 100%. Brandon Staley freaking like you saw the video of him reading off all the things he loved about JC Jackson and Sebastian Joseph Day and Eric Kendricks and all these guys. But the coaches never did their end. Like they never held up that end. So like couldn't get it for the coach the first time. The coach could not seal the deal with the second round or the third round technically. With this group, it just feels like, okay, here's what I want. It works. We're vertically aligned. They'll take these players. They work for us and we'll do our part and elevate them. It's just, I know it's one day of padded practice. It's only year 2, the start of it too, but it's just beautiful to see so far.
Yeah, I think part of this is obviously like the pendulum swing of Mike Williams retiring, and now we're like, okay, like now what is the vision here? Yeah. And then Trey Harris is holding out. Obviously, there was a lot of stuff going around there, and I was a little bit more optimistic than you about KLS, but even I was not expecting him to like come out and have these optimistic moments and right away have catches of the day kind of plays. So the pendulum swing here is real. I don't think this is changing like either of our win-loss prediction totals. Like we're not picking them to win the Super Bowl. I think we're just reacting positively to players who we've been cautioned and trained to be patient with, and now they're starting out practice very, very strongly. So I don't think we're overreacting too much. I think this is all very positive, but we're not necessarily changing how we feel about the team overall.
Right. So far, ask me again when the season starts and we will change our predictions, I'm sure, or at least give an updated prediction. But for right now, I think we're just happy. The only thing better than being right is being right. And then everyone you were not so sure about, you're wrong about them. And they're good too. Like that is the best possible outcome, is that you were wrong about these players in a good way. Say a Tarheeb still, maybe we'll find out a Keandre Lambert-Smith. Like sure, McConkey great, all great, fine. But Tarheeb still, let's see Keandre Lambert-Smith. It's good to be, I think, wrong about those players. Again, we'll see with some of these.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of Oronde Gadsden's college tape. His specific kind of tight end is not really my favorite. Sure. But man, if he hits in this offense, you better believe I'm going to be, singing his praises. Maybe not as highly as Alex, who is already like going crazy with the Oronde Gadsden hype train and like is talking about buying a jersey and everything like that. But that's the beauty of this, evaluation process, is that you get to like players, not like players, but then when they end up on the Chargers, you end up just rooting for them and obviously hoping you are wrong or right, like you mentioned, and confirming priors obviously is less important.
Yes. Well, it might be. And if we talk about the next player.
Yeah. Speaking of priors, Mr. Quentin Johnston is probably like the standout of training camp so far. He has had several days in a row of big highlight plays to start training camp. He has had at least 5 touchdowns in the last 3 practices, all of which are over 20-yard touchdowns. And he had 2 touchdowns again today, 1 in 7-on-7, 1 in team drills. We'll talk about Jalen Reagor as well, but Quentin Johnston has, I think, elevated his game potentially more than any other player, through the first 6 practices. And I think that's a fair assessment right now.
Okay. So this has generated quite a bit of online discourse, this whole Quentin Johnston
thing. It's going to continue, when he has a bad practice, people will be very loud as well.
Yes, it is. I'm in the middle of all of this. If you know how we felt about Quentin Johnston, or if you didn't know, go watch Steven's reaction to the pick. That's generally how we felt about Quentin Johnston. I would have preferred Cedric Tillman at the time. I think we wanted a defensive player, Nolan Smith.
I wanted a tight end or a defensive player.
Yeah, sure. Something like that. Point is, it really wasn't Quentin Johnston there. But he's on the team, and he has his faults, and they've been very apparent in some very notable moments. I was in person for the Ravens game and the Texans game this year. I'll tell you what, unfun for sure. But for all his faults, I hope as fans, we can acknowledge that when he's also good, we could say nice things about him. Everyone's like, oh, you just want I saw someone say like, oh, the podcasters just want to be right about Quentin Johnston so much. Dude, if I'm right about him, it's because he stinks. Like if I'm right about him, it's because he's bad.
Our priors are that it turns out as a not good player.
Yeah, was not worth the selection. And so far, we are right. We are right so far. I hope he proves us wrong. He is a member of the Chargers, and I'm going to root for him now that he's on the team. He's on the Raiders. I hope he stinks. I hope he's terrible. I hope he's just awful, awful, awful. On the Chargers, dude, I'm going to praise you at any possible moment I can, but also point out when you're bad. Quentin Johnston, though, and Jalen Reagor, they've been really good to start camp. And I know it's camp. People love to remind me, it's just training camp. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I have training camp.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Thank you. What's training camp? Oh, shit.
Whoa.
That's crazy. I understand it's not a real game. Like I said, I saw bad in person with this, not just Quentin Johnston, the receiving core in general. I have my doubts. I have my questions.
Yeah.
But right now, there's nothing else I can ask for Quentin Johnston, and he's exceeding what I would even have asked for him. It's just like, go out there, be good, catch the passes. And now we're down to the point where it's like micromanaging that maybe it was a little bit of a bobble because Cam Hart punched at it and like it's not Madden, but whatever. I'm glad he's doing well. I think in particular, it's important that he is specifically catching these long touchdown passes or just touchdown passes in general from Justin Herbert. This is not an Easton Stick go ball down the left sideline against, I don't know, whoever. Like these are actually good moments. Granted, I don't know who 38 is, no offense, on the picture here. But the point is he's doing this with Justin Herbert. And everyone's like, wow, Herbert like trusts Quentin Johnston. I get having doubts for sure. But if you're 5 touchdowns in the last 3 practices and you've won every single time, and at minimum have the separation to warrant the trust to throw the football, and then you're also scoring, nothing else you can do. He's been amazing so far. But I hope it translates to the regular season.
Right. Obviously, we are, again, not calling him like the wide receiver 2 or saying that everything is forgotten, but we've all seen him struggle to make the kind of catches that he has made so far in training camp. The Green Bay game from his rookie season is perhaps like the worst one there, where they had a chance to win that game, and the Ravens as well, but Ravens was like a different kind of situation. I still have my doubts of him playing X receiver. As Daniel Popper says, that has been his primary alignment so far. I don't know if that really is going to change. I don't know if he is going to be the kind of true like 50-50 guy that is required of him to be playing in this role. But the improvements that he's made are undeniable. And are they like transforming him into an elite player? No, that's not what we're saying. But these over-the-shoulder catches that we've seen him making over the past couple of days are catches that he did not make last year. For all of his improvements last season, a lot of it was like the Chargers using him more smartly than the previous regime did. You know, give him some yards after catch opportunities, give him some slant opportunities, and let him create with his athleticism. But the consistency issues were still there. Now, like they're showing up that he's making more improvements. And when I was at training camp last year, and other people have talked about this, like Popper and Eric Smith, like Sanjay Lal drills home the over shoulder stuff with him like 100 times every single practice. And so far, it seems like that is an improvement in his game. It seems like his ball tracking is better. It seems like his ability to be confident in those situations has improved. So I think it's fair to still question really what is his ceiling as a wide receiver. What is his floor as a wide receiver? You know, can he really be an X receiver? All of that is fair. I'm right there with you. But we have to acknowledge also that he's improving in certain areas. And there are other players, other former first-round picks who I love the selection of who are still to this day struggling with certain things that they struggle with as rookies. And Quentin Johnston is at very least making improvements that are visible and out there for us to see. So for whatever you think of Quentin Johnston, you should be happy that he is improving. To what scale is to be determined. But so far, again, trending positive, hitting the ground running, all of this is good news.
Yes, it is good news. And let's not be like Mike, where it's like Quentin Johnston's a waste of roster space. Like, I promise if a 711, 55 catch, 8 touchdown receiver was signed by the Chargers tomorrow, Mike would be going, oh, Harbaugh's going to get the best out of him. He's going to be amazing. I understand the concerns of Quentin Johnston. I really do. Trust me. They were there before the draft. They're still there. Trust me. Was not a favorite pick of either of ours.
No.
Waste of roster space is insane. Like, even if you think he's your wide receiver 5, that is the best wide receiver 5 you could possibly have in the NFL. He'll be starting for them this year. He's going to be playing a lot. I hope he does well. Again, we both have our concerns, but he's taking the right steps. It's good to talk about this now. So if he has a good regular season, we go, hey, it didn't come out of nowhere. Like, he was building towards this.
Yeah, building, I think, is the important thing. And is he a bona fide wide receiver 2? We can't say that. But I think last year he showed that he can be a serviceable wide receiver 3 type. We've seen, seasons where Jalen Guyton is the wide receiver 3 and it's like a struggle to get to 500 yards. 700 yards, 8 touchdowns for your wide receiver 3 is definitely more than acceptable. That requires obviously somebody to elevate into the wide receiver 2 role, which we have not seen yet either. But I think, again, just improving in certain weaknesses is a really difficult thing to do. If you always struggle with one particular aspect of your game, it's really difficult to just fix that, even as an NFL player. Like Zion Johnson, for example, is a prime person to point to here.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday, he did not pick up a Khalil Mack stunt, and Khalil Mack essentially had a free rush on Justin Herbert, and there was like a 2-minute drill situation, and Khalil Mack's like the one player on defense that you need to account for all the time.
Yeah.
So that's a player that's still struggling with one particular trait of his game. Quentin Johnston has struggled with these things, and he's making strong improvements, and I think that should be applauded more so than like, well, let's wait and see. Oh, he's still a waste of roster space. Let's just be happy that a player has addressed his weaknesses, making corrections, and to his credit, it sounds like he has a real chip on his shoulder right now as a young player, growing into a new role. So again, wait and see. I need to see in a game, can he actually win a contested catch situation against a good corner, to be determined. But he is improving at things that he did struggle with previously and deserves credit for that.
Yeah. So we'll find out very early what kind of player he's going to be this year. Kansas City, I don't know if the Raiders, but the Broncos for sure. Great secondaries, great players. We'll see.
Yes, we will. We will definitely see. The Chiefs had Trent McDuffie shadow him last year in week 4, and that was not pretty. I think they will put him on McConkey this time around because they will actually know who he is. But yeah,
which leaves Trey Harris wide open for the touchdown, baby.
There you go.
So excited.
So obviously, all things positive so far for the young pass catchers in this offense. We'll see how that goes. The Chargers still have a long ways to go because they had an extra week and a half of training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before we continue here, our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and then our YouTube audience is going to continue right along after this. All right, next up here is a strong showing from the Chargers defense today. Most of what we have on the screen that we're going to talk about is according to Eric Smith of Chargers.com, which really quickly, huge shout out to Eric as well as Daniel Popper, providing some very high level, detail oriented reporting on practices. I know people get a little frustrated with them like not being able to tweet during games. It's not their fault, I promise. But post practice, both of them just do fantastic job covering the team and giving us information. So we don't have Popper's write up yet, but we're going to use Eric Smith's here a little bit to talk about the strong defensive performance today.
Yeah, both those guys. Chris Rim definitely on the live stuff and in the articles and more so like what he does for ESPN. But the specific practice recaps, Eric, Daniel, fantastic stuff. It is funny after talking about the offense and the younger guys and then the offense and Quentin Johnston previously. It seems to be, if you actually read these articles, that the defense has been better. And I am curious, and it seems like it from kind of what we've been gathering over the last week and a half or so of practicing. It seems like it's because the Chargers front seven is beating up on the Chargers offensive line and maybe kind of what they're doing there and just playing really well. You hear about Khalil Mack, you hear about Henley. Thule had something today. DB's kind of like 50-50. Sometimes they lose. But I'm very curious, given that even though we hear about these offensive highlights, we hear or read, I guess, from Popper and Smith that it really seems to be the defense having more of a better day. I am very curious if it's more like the front seven. But today in particular, Eric Smith said that the defense actually won the day overall, which again is very funny when you're watching all these offensive highlights. But Khalil Mack, granted with Rashawn Slater not out there, but Khalil Mack had 2 sacks on back-to-back plays, had 2 sacks. I don't know if he specified against who.
One of them was against Ryan Nelson, who is with the second team offense right now because Slater is not practicing.
Yeah. So, could be different with Rashawn Slater out there and a normal offensive line.
Yeah.
Cam Hart apparently had 2 passes broken up today. Tri Bridges did not have some good moments and has had a bit of a rough camp, but apparently he made a couple of plays, including a one-handed interception. I believe it was Rager as the receiver. I could be wrong. Looked slightly overthrown, but he did make the play. And that vertical stuff, like that downfield stuff, is definitely where Bridges should excel. He's tall, he's athletic, he's fast. Yeah. That showed the part with him at Florida. So I think that should mostly show up here, even though he's had some losses. But overall, even with these individuals on offense playing, it seems very well, and the receivers and tight ends playing very well, granted with only 1 day of pads, the defense seems to be winning overall throughout training camp.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the one-on-one situation was pretty, intense, but it was a lot of splitting reps. So Thule beat Trey Pipkins once and knocked his helmet off, and then Pipkins beat him the next time. Joe Alt beat Khalil, but then Khalil beat Pipkins, and then Alt won against Bud Dupree. Becton actually won both of his reps against Tier Tart, which is great to hear. Deshaun Hand, Jamari Sawyer split their reps. Zion Johnson, Daquan Jones split their reps. So there was a lot of like splitting stuff in one-on-ones of the trenches. I know that's where Popper was spending his time today. So I think we'll get maybe a little bit more detail there of how that exactly looked and sounded and went. So we'll see what happens. But I think overall, the defense starting strong is not necessarily a huge surprise. I think just general like training camp structure is there. And then we talk about the young guys, right? But there with young guys on offense, there is a tendency to kind of have some, discombobulation a little bit, is how Daniel Popper put it yesterday. It was just kind of like all over the place, but the strong moments were very strong. Well, the defense is you have Khalil, you have Cam Hart, you have Deion Henley, you have Derwin James, etc. And so the stronger veteran unit is the defense. So I think that is part of it, at least early on right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in the one-on-ones, I'm sure the younger guys, the receivers are like trying to make those plays and like, let's go to this. And like, let's try to make the team. And or at least like, get rolls with the ones. The defense is like, kind of been there, done that. Even on the Keandre Lambert-Smith catch, which was insane. I still don't know how he did that. I watched it 2-3 times, I think, before I actually realized he did actually get both of his feet in. I watched it, I was like, that's kind of nice. But like, he was out. I don't know how he did that. But on that play, you could see Dean Leonard was kind of like, hands kind of out to the side, like can't go up, like punch the ball, can't hit him. Because Harbaugh has said, like, we're not doing that. We're trying to make it to the regular season, be in a decent place, let the offense play, yada yada. So good to hear. I know in a real situation, if it were Roman's offense versus Minter's defense, I know Minter would have him begging for mercy. Despite all the good stuff that Herbert can do, I think Minter would wipe the floor, unfortunately, with Greg Roman. But it's actually very nice to hear that there are great standout moments for the offense, but the defense is still what it is. Even against all these new weapons and Herbert and Roman in year 2, Minter's defense, which I still think is very shorthanded. Parsons Trey Hendrickson, like you guys don't want to, be on those situations, come on over because that's a whole freaking mess. It's good to see there's a good back and forth.
Yeah, just responding with a quick little.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because we're still seeing that thing put out there, but the defense, I think, is going to make some strides this year, even though they haven't done a ton of quote unquote upgrading. I just think this unit is liable to have a lot of internal improvement, and I think that's something that really goes undervalued when talking about the ceiling and floors of these teams during the offseason is so often geared towards who did they add versus who is going to continue to improve. And I think, Khalil Mack is obviously at this stage of his career very well defined, but he had 2 pulled groins last year. Theoretically, they're going to get more health and a higher output from Khalil Mack this season. Cam Hart, Tariq still liable to improve. Jasir Taylor sounds like he's made some strong strides. We haven't really seen a ton from Junior Colson or heard a ton from Junior Colson, I should say. But he's somebody who should improve. Denzel Perryman should theoretically stabilize, a little bit more with his injury history. Dan Henley, obviously the key guy there to get, improvement. So for all of the positive stuff we're hearing from the offense, I think so far I would just say consistency is kind of the word of the day with the defense.
Yeah, which is wonderful. I believe in Jesse Minter. I've swung the other direction after having not my doubts about Minter, I guess, but the defense. I've swung the other way. Now in Minter, I trust. Yeah, I think they'll regress a tiny bit this year, maybe against some of the better deep offenses for sure. But it's good to hear that group, like you said, the veterans, the core guys, been there, done that, guys, are still very good, and some of the younger players are stepping up. I would have killed to see Tart versus Becton. That is 700 pounds between those two. That is freight train nose tackle and the biggest. I feel like that is Becton the biggest player in the NFL.
I think Daniel Falele is technically bigger.
Because
I think Falele is 6'9", and they're about the same.
Yeah.
So Becton is 6'7", 360. So that is definitely a large human being. Becton might have Falele beat in length and stuff like that. Tart is listed at 6'2", 314. So large human beings. Let's see what Falele is.
Yeah, that is specifically. Granted, I thought Tart was a very good pass rusher, but if Tart is relying on was it? He's not 400.
He's 6'9", 380. That's what he's listed at. Listed at could change, obviously.
Right, listed at. That's impressive. Good for him.
Yeah.
That cut post retirement cut is going to be legendary.
Yeah, and he's another one of those guys that played rugby at a young age, so he gained weight very rapidly. Mm-hmm. So yeah. For what it's worth, the Chargers did a 9-on-7 situation yesterday, and Daniel Popper pointed out the kind of defensive line rotations, which is not necessarily new, but the first team defensive line included Tart, Naquan Jones, and Deshaun Hand. So again, they're 3 most veteran players there in that group. Second team defense. Oh yeah, Dylan Cole says Desmond Watson. That's a good call. He's definitely the largest human being. The one from Florida that's on the Buccaneers. Yeah, he's the biggest one. Although he's only 6'5". But
yeah,
imagine if he were 6'8" or 6'9".
Yeah.
Second team defensive line was. Oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking right now. That distracted me. Sorry. Second team defensive line was Justin Eboigbe, Scott Matlock, and Otito Ogbonia. And then third team defensive line was Jamari Caldwell, Tayra Edwards, and then who was the other one? He's one of the other younger players. But anyways, point being, Jamari Caldwell still working with the third team defense right now. Yeah. Again, things can change, but if you had asked me, 2 weeks ago, which day 3 rookie would be making the most positive noise, I probably would have picked Jamari Caldwell, just because we trust this defensive staff so much.
Third round pick. Sorry.
Anyways, that's my idea, is that it would have been Jamari would have been my pick, and instead it's the offensive guys. So we'll have to wait and see about Jamari Caldwell right now.
Yeah. So on that point, I was very curious. How does Joel Ortiz maybe evaluate the timeline for defensive tackles? Not that I know the answer to this, but You look at like Madubuike, his first year, 300 snaps, then 482, then 684, and then in year 4, 849. Travis Jones, 340, then 518, then 675. That's still more than a Boygby did last year. But I am very curious, like, do they take guys they know are going to be great by year 3? In this case, with defensive tackle, I don't know. I'm assuming they just want these guys to be good early. But so far, it's a bummer to hear that your 3rd round pick in Caldwell is that far behind, especially when the only track record we really have so far is a Boygby, who barely played last year, and he's ahead of him.
Yeah. Jacob Arnold asking, how does Boygby look in person? We don't know, but from pictures, he definitely looks like he's bigger. The defensive coaching staff said that he put on like 20 pounds of muscle. So Charlie says that Caldwell is a Ben Herbert project. That could very well be the case,
Yeah.
I was just kind of expecting maybe a little bit more, playing time and maybe a little bit more noise. Daniel Popper said that he did kind of he snuffed out a screen and that looked good, but there's not been a ton of stuff about Caldwell. He's still rotating with the 3rd team defense. So it's just kind of wait and see mode there, which is not necessarily shocking, but I definitely was expecting him to be rotating with the 2nd team defense a little bit more, playing ahead of Scott Matlock at minimum, I think would have been my expectation. So we'll see there. People asking about Kyle Kennard, not a ton of noise there, working with the 2nd team defense, but the thing about playing 2nd team defense as an edge rusher means that you have to go up against Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater when he's there quite often. So I'm not necessarily surprised that Kyle Kennard has not made a ton of noise yet.
No, these defensive line ones will definitely be. It's awesome if they beat Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, but I'm waiting for the preseason. I'm waiting for the Hall of Fame game. And that's actually a very good one because the Lions have a lot of good young players on the offensive line. So that'll be a good one to evaluate how they're doing. 3 more preseason games, and then we'll kind of know from there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, our next one here is Mr. Rashawn Slater, whose situation is murky, I would describe it right now. So he participated in practice the first 2 days, reported for training camp. Everything was fine. I thought that him showing up and practicing was a good sign of where the contract was heading. That contract has still not been signed. He does not practice on Saturday. Greg Roman says that it is a rest day. They were, quote, giving him a blow, end quote. That is not my words. Those are his words.
I'm sorry. Run that by me one more time. What was the quote?
Blame Greg Roman. I'm not saying it again. Those were Greg Roman's words, not my own.
Should I practice too? That's the quote.
That was the exact quote. Yes,
that is the first time I've heard that one. Wow, you've
never heard that expression actually, like for real?
Well, yeah, but what?
It's like an older school quote. Okay,
it's an older school quote. That's for sure. Anyway.
The reporters asked him a follow-up because he was like rest, etc. And then they were like, so is he injured? And he was like, no, he's healthy. He's good. Doesn't practice yesterday. Doesn't practice today. Harbaugh before practice said that he was working through something physically and that the injury is, quote, minor. I have it on good authority that he is quite healthy. So I don't know, man. I am a little frustrated that this contract is not signed yet, especially given him doing all of the right things, showing up to minicamp and participating instead of not practicing, showing up the first couple of days to practice right now and participating. I'm a little frustrated that this contract has not been signed yet. And again, his previous relationship has absolutely 100% nothing to do with the contract negotiation. I can say that very confidently that his relationship has nothing to do with it. So I don't know what's going on with the negotiations. This isn't like the Trey Hendrickson situation where Trey is negotiating a very specific number and then TJ Watt says, here's $40 million for me.
Yeah.
And so there's not been like a, upping of the market. Zach Tom, nothing to do with this contract negotiation. So I'm a little frustrated that this has not been taken care of just quite yet.
Yeah, I am as well. First off, if it is for some particular reason a minor injury, that sucks. This time last year, I believe it was the 2 days before training camp or the padded practices started. Rashawn Slater left early with abundance of caution. Something was going on, undisclosed injury, and he wasn't practicing the next day. And that led to Jim Harbaugh's whole I am not a medical expert. I'm just going to say they're working through something. He gave us that guilty as charged soundbite in our video is from that one because of Rashawn Slater and that issue. So it's not like they haven't done this. They've said, working through something. They've said the minor thing before, and it worked out fine. Rashawn Slater played most of the season. By all accounts, was generally healthy. Wasn't an issue, at least in terms of week 1 or the preseason. But this is, very, at minimum, confusing and murky, as you said, and getting to be a bit frustrating at this point that this has not been done. As you said, Rashawn Slater has done all the right things. My assumption is that, I think whatever he's asking for has been pretty much determined for a long time now. Like you said, the Tom extension doesn't change anything. He's not making less than Tom. Zach Tom, that is, not Tom whoever. So I hope this gets done very, very soon. We've been saying that we hope it gets done. But at this point, let's wrap this thing up. Not that it matters necessarily because they play in a month, but it'd be nice for him to be out there and Khalil Mack not have 2 sacks against the backup tackle because Slater's not out there. Would love for Slater to be out there with the team, gelling, doing all the right things. He was signing autographs today as well after practice. He's trying to do everything he can to be there. It's up to the Chargers now. He's really, at least publicly with his actions, saying ball's in your court.
Yeah, and Popper pointed out yesterday that he was working with Ben Herbert during practice, and then he was working off to the side, and then participated in the fourth quarter finisher drills. That's not usually something that unhealthy people do, guys. So I am pretty confident that he is healthy, and that this is contractual related. So it's to me, it's just something that should have been taken care of already, and it's frustrating that it was. So people will again kind of point to the Zach Tom situation. Zach Tom's making 22.5 per year. That is a different market than what Rashawn Slater is working towards. To me, at minimum, you're looking at the Trent Williams number, which is 27.5, and saying you need to give me more than that. And maybe he doesn't get all the way past Tristan Wirf's 28.125, which is the current top mark at left tackle. But he should be in that range of 27.5, 28.5-ish. That's just kind of how the market is. You're talking about a 2-time Pro Bowl tackle, 1-time All-Pro. Again, I think it should have been more than that. He's done all the right things. He's been a team captain for you now. He's playing through injuries. He's participating while doing the contract negotiation. He's doing the fourth quarter finisher drills when he's dealing with something minor. This is just something that it should be taken care of already. So part of this is it's not even really due to Rashawn. The practice reps for Rashawn, I don't think he needs them. But this team continues to be really annoying with the flip-flopping of sides. And I think Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton need all the training camp reps possible to ensure that their communication is on point. And for whatever reason, they just like to put Joe Alt at left tackle when Slater is not practicing, which I get in a game. I would rather have him at left tackle than Trey Pipkins. But right now, I would just rather have all the reps of those 2 guys next to each other. I would rather have Slater and Bradley Bozeman. If Bozeman's going to play left guard, they need reps together. So just get this done as soon as possible. Slater is a great player. He deserves it. He's, done all of the extra stuff. This to me should have been taken care of before training camp. Yeah. And I think the longer this goes on, the more detrimental it is to the overall unit as a whole.
Yeah. I hope there's a kind of 2-for-1 here where Rashawn Slater gets his deal done. He's back at left tackle. And then the Chargers just decide who the left guard is, or I guess who the center is, and therefore the left guard. That way you have the 5 set and you have at least 4 weeks of really working together, same communication, working together side by side, the adjustments, whatever. So hopefully those 2 things get done or decided pretty close to each other. So this can just be something we don't talk about anymore.
Rooster says he doesn't deserve that money after last season, but also says he's a tier 1 guy. Well, if he's a tier 1 guy, he definitely deserves that money. That's kind of how the contract negotiations work.
Yes, if he is a tier 1 guy, which I believe he is, then yes. I don't think he should go to 30 mil a year minimum. Joe Wall will probably do that by the time that rolls.
Oh man, by the time Joe Alto's due for a contract, you're probably talking about like closer to 40, honestly.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how many Paris Johnson's got his. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
40 is probably a stretch. You're probably talking about 35.
Yeah,
35.
probably.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to our next one here. The Chargers signed Nyheim Hines. You and Alex tweeted out at the exact same time that the Chargers were working out Hines and John Kelly yesterday. John Kelly was on the practice squad for about a month last season. Nyheim Hines is a totally different stylistic player than the other running backs on the roster. He's much smaller and he is much quicker, and he has not played football since 2022. So this is all notable because Jim Harbaugh today said that they are, quote, praying for healing in regards to Najee Harris and his eye issue. That he has been in meetings. He is progressing according to Jim Harbaugh. But man, I don't want to overreact. Kind of the theme of the day, obviously. But praying for healing is not inspiring a lot of confidence right now for me.
There's one of two ways to go with it. The more negative, pessimistic, I suppose, is praying for healing. Like, we need God to help us out here. Like, Ben Herbert can't do it, so we need divine intervention to make this better. I'm hoping that's just like because of his beliefs and like how he feels, praying for healing, kind of like hoping for the best. I don't know. The agent said that he is working towards being ready for week 1 and the start of the regular season. So that's when my panic button starts to hit.
Sure.
You get to the next couple of weeks and he's not practicing. Fine. It is good that he is at least in the meetings. I think if this were like Najee Harris only has one eyeball, I think it would have leaked at this point. Like somebody would have found that out.
Yeah, if he did not have an eye, we would know.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would be at practice.
No, I think you call it done at that point with Mike Williams there. So whatever it is, it's clearly not great because he's not out there. But I'm gonna hold off on this one for a few more weeks. If you go to week, the start of the regular season, and like Najee Harris doesn't make the trip to Brazil, all right, then I panic at that point.
Yeah, I think the Hines signing, the working out of John Kelly is probably more about Rocket Sanders, just because they need a body. They need somebody to come in and handle backup running back duties and handle preseason carries, which is why I'm a little surprised that it's Hines and not Kelly, because Kelly is kind of a bigger guy, who is more like Sanders and more like Harris stylistically than Hines is. But I think the Chargers, when they look for these kind of veteran players, they do kind of value a lot of versatility. And so Hines was the best kickoff returner in the league in 2022. He was a Pro Bowl player. He was an all-pro returner. I think he had 3 kickoff return touchdowns. Opened that season with Buffalo with a massive kickoff return for a touchdown. So maybe they're not necessarily trying to like sign this guy because they want him on the 53, but maybe they're just trying to get some value, some versatility. And obviously they know that he can catch the ball. They know that he can return kicks. Maybe they're experimenting with that kind of type of player versus, getting another Rocket Sanders in here. But we'll see. I don't know if there was an update on Rocket and his status, but he did not practice again today either. So Hines got work. He did get, kickoff return snaps for those wondering. But this is a guy who I think has a lot of versatility and has veteran leadership. Maybe that's an aspect of this too. So I wouldn't be projecting him to make the roster right now, but I think it's definitely, impactful that they do not have these other 2 running backs, and Hines is that guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't project him either, barring anything happening or more news on Najee Harris. With also Luke Grimm not practicing, the wide receiver out of Kansas. A lot of Chargers fans really liked him. I thought he was fun to watch on film, but it was, an uphill battle. We didn't have him making the roster. But if he was someone who was also in the preseason going to be returning kicks and punts, then bringing in Hines kind of kills two birds with one stone, where it's like, okay, well, we're shifting our running backs. The guys here have to be shifted up. We bring in Hines to be our running back, and also he can return those kicks for us that we were hoping maybe Luke Grimm could do or Sanders could do. And that's kind of two birds, one stone. So I'm intrigued. I don't know what to expect. If you are sitting here going like, wow, this is going to be there. He's going to jump everybody, and Haskins and Darius Davis, they're going to be cut for this player. Hold your horses. We'll see. But I think it's a smart move by them at minimum to at least keep churning the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, so just looking at this, Darius Davis didn't actually return kicks or punts very often in the preseason last year. I think he was dealing with an injury. But Jalen Gill was actually like their main kickoff and punt returner last season. He had seven total returns, 4 kickoffs, 3 punts. And that was kind of like his role we don't want to have Darius Davis returning kicks in the preseason. So here's Jalen Gill. And that could very well be Hines. It could have been Grimm, like you mentioned. It could have been Sanders, could have been a combination of multiple players. But I think it doesn't hurt to bring in a player like this who has that veteran experience, has the ability to give you some versatility as a pass catcher, returner, and you see what happens. At minimum, you could potentially keep this guy on the practice squad if things go well, and maybe he's a return in a pinch kind of thing, and you trust his veteran leadership and things like that. So we'll have to see what happens here. But I was surprised from the stylistic fit, going Hines instead of John Kelly.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll see how it goes in the preseason. He's been working back to be actually healthy and available.
Yep.
Was with the Browns last year. I don't know if that's a good thing. Well, it's not a good thing, but I don't know if it's a worrisome thing because they didn't exactly have a great rushing attack with Chubb not doing anything. And so
did he play though, or was he just on the practice squad?
I think he was just like a practice squad guy. I don't even know when he even joined. No offensive carries for him whatsoever. Which is kind of why I'm worried. If you the Browns weren't doing anything, if you couldn't see the field, it's a bit worrisome. But again, Joe Ortiz found Elijah Molden for a 7th round pick. He still has not had to even have the Titans use yet. So, trust him to find these guys.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last point here. Raise your hand if you cried at work yesterday, because I certainly did. Phillip Rivers finally announced that he was retiring. He has not played since 2020. There were some rumblings in 2021 and 2022 that he was maybe considering a comeback. Obviously, that did not happen. He has continued to coach his son in high school football. Gunnar is weirdly I think he's a 4-star recruit right now. So the comeback never happened. He apparently stayed in shape, but he has officially now announced his retirement, retiring as a Charger. He signed a contract. The part that made me lose it, man, was when the offensive linemen all came in and they were the ones to hand him the 1-day contract. I just thought that was such a cool touch, going to Alabama, visiting his house. And obviously it would have been cool to get him out to LA, but the offensive lineman being the one to hand him the contract was just awesome. So the whole video was handled so greatly. I miss watching Phillip Rivers play football every single day. The man is one of the main reasons why I am a fan of the Chargers. And very cool, obviously, that the announcement comes at this point in time. We're about to get the Gates Hall of Fame stuff. Rivers comes back to sign as a Charger. Just really, really cool and very well done by the team and from Phil, obviously.
Yeah. We'll never have a player like Phillip Rivers. And I think we'll never have a person fill that spot in our hearts like Phillip Rivers. I think just because of the nature of the age that we were and the milestones and the checkpoints in our lives that he was not a part of, but he was our quarterback during those moments. I mean, he was drafted when I was in 4th grade, and in a week I turned 30 and he announced his retirement this week. I mean, it's been that long that he's been in some ways a part of our lives. And, this was a player, it's the first jersey I ever got. I'm rehashing something that we discussed. Our second episode ever on the Guilty as Charged podcast was an emergency podcast. We just did audio with you, me, and Jason about the Chargers separating from Phillip Rivers. And it was a mutual parting of the ways. But Rivers was like in my life when my dad and I really started to bond, like the trips to San Diego and back, to Qualcomm and back. My dad and I were always close, but it's different when you bond with your dad over a sport that you love watching.
Yeah.
And Phillip Rivers was the quarterback for most of those drives, especially just to San Diego. Like, of course, that was Phillip Rivers. And I'll like never forget those moments. And, just him being the quarterback through, my first, any checkpoint of my life, going to high school, going to college, getting my bachelor's, a first date I've ever had, the first time I learned how to drive, getting my license, turning 18, turning 21, meeting my wife. Like, there's so many checkpoints of my life where on Sundays I'm watching Phillip Rivers. And so he just means, so much. And I always appreciated how he was so unafraid. Two things, many things. So unafraid to be specifically himself and like have his clearly strong voice on the field. A guy who was so very like sure of himself, but also a guy who was just so gracious with in defeat. It could have been an awful game, and we saw some terrible things. But no matter what, you didn't hear a single bad thing about his teammates. I watched him tear up over an admirable performance by his offensive line because guys were hurt, and like Chris Hairston stepped up for the team.
Yep.
And he was like, oh man, like they just like they fought so hard for me. And they were probably terrible that game. Like, they probably got him killed.
He probably got hit a lot that day.
Killed. But this is a player, I don't remember the exact numbers, but in 2015, his leading receiver was Danny Woodhead. His leading rusher was Melvin Gordon with like 640 yards. This dude still put up, and his offensive line, 32nd in the league. Like, whatever Herbert's been dealing with, this was terrible. Worse. And the dude still put up 4,800 yards, almost 30 touchdowns, and only 13 interceptions. The third best turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL that year, with that as a supporting cast. Like, he was just a force of nature. It was an honor covering him. Of course, like my first time at Bolt Beat, then being the site expert, working with you, Steven, and Alex and Jason, starting this podcast, it being our second episode as a podcast together. Just a huge part of all of our lives. And I'm so happy that he gets to close this chapter, and then we get to just celebrate him and whenever that happens, and turn the page. It's crazy that he retires right when I about to turn 30. And again, he was our quarterback, or traded to the Chargers in 2004 when I was 9.
Yeah, 2004 I would have been 10. My earliest memories of, because growing up as a teenager in Utah, we didn't get to watch every Chargers game, but my earliest memories of Phillip Rivers are the games where him and Jay Cutler were just talking shit the entire time.
Yep.
And just crushing the Broncos, which I loved because the majority of my friends were Broncos fans.
Yeah.
Because they're the local team in Utah.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that my favorite quarterback was just smashing the Broncos and talking shit on the other quarterback.
Yeah.
Just such a unique personality. There's not many quarterbacks these days, or those days, was even less so, that were the most active yappers, to, steal the day on Henley term, being a quarterback. JJ Watt had a great tweet about it, saying that he wished he took as long to recognize a blitz as he did to retire. Because Rivers, just the back and forth with opposing defenses, was always such a highlight to see. The audio clip of him telling the other team, "You think that's a good blitz?" I love it. The audio clips of Rivers talking shit will never get old. I just love that aspect of him. I love the fact that regardless of who he was throwing to, you mentioned the 2015 season, the season where he's throwing to Dontrell Inman, Tyrell Williams as a rookie, and still putting up, a 4,000 yard season. The ending of his career, that offensive line in 2019 and 2018 were really bad, really bad. You're talking about Sam Tevy starting at left tackle, and all due respect to my Utah guy, but the 2019 offensive line was horrible. He dealt with moving to LA, which was such a volatile thing, and you didn't hear a peep about anything from Phillip Rivers. And there's a lot of quarterbacks in his similar circumstances that would have complained, whether
Aaron Rodgers.
whether privately or publicly, about those circumstances, and you never heard it.
No.
And the ending press conference of him saying, I never could have tried harder. I never once doubted that we were going to get the absolute best that Philip Rivers had, regardless of who he was playing with, regardless of who he was playing against. I knew every Sunday, Thursday, Monday that Philip Rivers was going to go out there and he was going to do the absolute best to make sure the Chargers could win those football games. And some of those teams had no business being in as many one-score games as they were, but it was all because of Philip Rivers. And, he played for some really poor coaches. He played with some really bad defenses, bad supporting cast on offense, but it didn't matter to him. All he wanted to do was go play football with his boys. Yeah. And I think that will always be his legacy to me, is that he just wanted to play football for the Chargers and he just wanted to give his absolute best. And I will always miss and respect him because of that.
Yep. His final game with the Chargers, his offensive line was Scott Quessenberry, Dan Feeney, Michael Schofield, Trey Pipkins as a rookie, and then they had to rotate because maybe someone got hurt, Sam Tevy and Trent Scott. That was his final game with the Chargers. And I'll give him credit. Still had 281 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep. That's Phil, man. It just didn't matter. So he was the quarterback of my childhood. He was the quarterback of the team when we started this podcast, technically. Took me through a lot of years of my college life. So he will always be the guy that I think of most when I talk about my fandom of the Chargers. Like when Brooke and I got married, during her speech, she was like, I'm never gonna have to worry about Steven. Like, he's been a Chargers fan his whole life. Like, he knows how to suffer and stick with it. And it's because of Phil, man. It really is. Like, if they had moved on from Rivers or whatever when I was in college and the Chargers were moving to LA and like all that stuff, I genuinely don't know if I would have stuck with the team. Like, Rivers helped me tie down through so much, change with the team and things like that. And I will always be grateful. And now I definitely am entrenched for life, but Rivers is like the main reason why. And I think, his legacy for that is always something I will cherish.
Yeah. Rarely. And I definitely can't say it anymore because I'm older. I'm turning 30, but rarely can I say an athlete was a role model for me. But Philip Rivers was definitely that. Whether it's, if you want to say like this comment here about like, faith, family and football, absolutely. The talking smack. I talked smack at my UCI flag football game, and I got a little bit in trouble for that. But you know what? It was fun, and it just comes out of me, and it must be the Philip Rivers. There's something that I do in a way that I talk sometimes where I kind of bring up my nostril in a certain way. That's what Philip Rivers does. There's just like, it's such a part of me in a way that maybe I'll never really quite understand, but there's just, I don't know. It's obviously he hasn't been a quarterback for the Chargers for a bit. So we've had moments like without him. So we know thankfully life after Philip Rivers, well, it hasn't been great, but at least we have a quarterback, which is good.
That's the thing about the Chargers, man. We always got a quarterback.
yeah, and for better or worse, there is a quarterback. And by golly, we have some tackles this year. Thank goodness. But anybody in the chat right now or in the comments, if you're revisiting this, I'm definitely going to clip out like this because, it's Philip Rivers. But what's like your favorite moment or story from him? I love the Sean Merriman story that he was like, you could hear someone walking down the hall, full on rapping the latest like hit or whatever's on the radio, and it's Philip Rivers. Like, he knew bar for bar everything about that song. It's Philip Rivers. Like, that's just, it's just awesome. So, and if you the bolo tie stuff, the win in Denver, obviously for us, the last playoff win. Yeah, that game with the Ravens.
The finger point on the first down, iconic.
The whole game, everything was just awesome about that. But yeah, that specific finger point, aging Philip Rivers couldn't run for anything, but he could on that play. And for him to actually kind of realize that and just like do the finger point, we all know the Keenan noises. We know Geno Smith is in the background. Like, we all know that play like the back of our hands.
Yeah.
And whatever your favorite moments are, drop them. I got to see him torch the defending Seahawks, champion Seahawks live. Yep. Him, Antonio Gates, throwback game. I could spend the next hour talking about those moments, but Yeah, but if you guys have one, let me know.
Yeah, I missed the Keenan Allen rookie season. That probably has a lot of fun ones for me.
Yeah.
The Cowboys game in Dallas for Thanksgiving is a little bit more about Keenan, but that was a fun Philip Rivers moment.
Sure.
Derwin highlighted the Steelers game from 2018. That's a great one. I mentioned the stuff with Jay Cutler when he was younger was definitely super fun to watch. Obviously, the ACL, playing on torn ACL is iconic. So yeah, man, there's a ton of great Phil Rivers moments. We could spend hours talking about this, like you said. The video that the team put together of like the fans at camp talking about it.
That's awesome.
Great touch. Love that. So yeah, man, I'm gonna miss Phil. Obviously, his son is gonna be in college football probably for some team starting in like 2 years, which is crazy to me. So I'm excited to see what kind of, college football, NFL football dad Philip Rivers is and see kind of what evolves there. But 2016 Bengals comeback, fantastic one. There's some great moments in there.
Yeah. Another one that's not a particular game, but I always just kind of thought it was fun that he always beat Eli Manning. He's 4-0.
Yeah.
Again, not that it's quarterback versus quarterback, but I was just looking up the stats. He had almost 1,000 passing yards and 11 touchdowns, passer rating of 114, only 2 picks, 4-0 against Eli Manning. You can kind of he probably wanted that a little bit.
Sure.
It was just clean sweep against Eli Manning. Tom Brady couldn't do it, but by golly, Philip Rivers could.
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of the stuff. Rivers did. Eric Smith did an article talking about Philip Rivers' top 5 memories with the Chargers. Number 1 was the comeback win of 2018 at Arrowhead, and then there was another game of 2013 that he mentioned with Sehi Ajera-Tutu catching that one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, the 2009 playoff win versus the Colts, that definitely is.
Yeah, I
is
thought
a
that
big
would have
one.
been fun.
That was second on his list. Third on his list was the Cincinnati comeback. Fourth on his list was the 2009 game against the Giants.
Yep.
Vincent Jackson touchdown, 2-minute drive.
Yep.
Last one was 2013, the Denver Keenan Allen game where he jumped up and scored that touchdown, which I've seen the highlight. I obviously did not get to watch that game, but those were Rivers' 5 choices.
Yeah, back when Deion Sanders was a post game, guy, not color commentator, but
that was one after the game where he was like, "I just love football," right?
Yeah, he's like, "I just love football." They got it was just like, "I got snakeskin boots and and all this sort of stuff." It's just a rattlesnake or whatever it is. Yeah, he was. It was the greatest any Chargers player has been on a microphone. It was just electric, and they won, and they beat the Broncos, and Keenan had his thing. It's just perfect.
Yeah, lots of stuff there. I didn't think we would talk about that for like 20 minutes, but we did. So
Philip Rivers, man,
that's our guy.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can definitely keep mentioning in the chat your favorite moments. You guys watching this, listening to this, tweet us your favorite moments, whatever. Like, we'll definitely engage in some Philip Rivers content. To end the show today, we'll touch on some of these super chats. We're gonna zoom through them real quick. It's been an hour 15 already, so we'll get to some of them. Dark Samus says, seeing Karlaftis extension makes me wonder. I don't think he has had good reps against good offensive tackles, run or pass, and he wants to know, is Thule a re-sign?
I think Thule is, as long as he doesn't have a significantly bad year, I think he's definitely a re-sign. Now, that doesn't mean that he's a Trey Hendrickson contract deal guy, but if he's your edge too for another 4 years, awesome. I think you could do pretty well with that.
Yeah, Karlaftis he's a good like tier 2 or like second edge rusher kind of player.
Yeah.
When he plays people like Joe Alt, it does not go very well, but he's had some strong playoff games that are really kind of doing a lot for his work there. Stand-up guy by all accounts. Theoretically, he could still get better. Pass rushers generally don't peak until their second contracts. So we'll see. I think he's a good player. I don't think he is worth necessarily that kind of contract.
Yeah.
But his numbers are basically like neck and neck across his first 2 seasons that Thule had put up in terms of regular season numbers. So it's a good benchmark potentially for the future. I don't see why Thule would not be a re-sign unless, like you said, kind of goes to shit the next 2 years.
Yes, but please don't put him on special teams.
Yes. He has another question. Do stunts, twists count against Zion's pass blocking? Isolating his pass blocking from his awareness issues. How would you evaluate Zion's pass blocking? So losing on a stunt still means you lose the rep, and that still counts as a pressure for you. Depending on which source you're using, it could be, is that the tackle's fault? Is that the center's fault? Or is it Zion's fault? So some places can define stunts and twists a little bit differently.
Sure.
But if you're the person closest to the pass rusher who is hitting the quarterback, it's your fault most of the time, like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
When Zion can get one-on-one situations, he's generally pretty good in pass protection. He's got a strong anchor. He's got strong hands. He has quick feet. He's able to win in a variety of ways. I would classify him as like an above average one-on-one pass protector, and very below average in terms of his awareness and stunt protection ability.
Yeah, I would have to agree there. The one-on-one stuff, I don't remember a ton of pure, just like, oh, someone beat it with an arm move, or you got bull rush, or I don't really remember a ton of that. It's just like you saw in practice.
Yeah,
and the other guy goes the other direction.
Yeah, against Khalil Mack, I'm like, okay, like.
Just like, please.
I'm lining up as the guard. Okay, here's Khalil. I'm going to make sure he's not hitting my guy.
Yeah.
It's like top priority theoretically, but
yeah,
frustrating. Our next one here from Colin Camp. He wants to know which draft picks play in the Hall of Fame game. I would say all of them except for Hampton.
Yeah,
because they just don't have the bodies at receiver.
Yeah,
like I think Trey has to play at least a little bit.
He'll play. Yeah, he'll play. I'm pretty sure McConkey did. It wasn't a lot though. There's a lot of air ball. I don't know. They weren't on the field very much on offense last year because they go 3 and out. So I couldn't really tell you. It was very bad. I think maybe Hampton gets a series or two in the Hall of Fame game. No, I don't think Hampton's going to play. Sorry. No. Just the Hall of Fame game. Yeah, Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Everybody that's healthy.
So Ladd played in the second preseason game. He did not play in the first or the third. And he had 17 snaps. So basically like 2 drives, I think.
Yeah. Or 7 drives if you're Easton Stick.
It's really bad. It's really bad. Yeah, but I would say all of them except for Hampton. Maybe not Trey, but everybody else should play.
Yeah. Do you think Quentin Johnston plays?
No.
Okay.
No. Not after Harbaugh called him elite today.
You called him elite?
Yep.
Cool. Hey. Stoked. He's been
great.
Elite.
Would love it, yeah.
He's been playing elite in training camp. It's just, All right.
Yeah. Dark Samus with another one here says Quentin Nelson shut Chris Jones down. Donald beat him. A lot of Quentin Nelson super chats. I'm not complaining. Thank you for the super chat, but
sure. I Dark Samus. What I say is just let's just see how week 1 goes.
Yeah,
I don't even know who's blocking Chris Jones at this point, or at least where that player is blocking Chris Jones.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but Chris Jones kind of plays like 20 to 25 snaps a game on the edge for them lately.
Not that game.
Yeah, I wouldn't go up against
over there. He's going back inside. Yeah. Like that's a stunt, guy. If he is lined up over Rashawn Slater, he's coming back inside.
Let's see what it was like 2 games last year.
Well, the first game they had no Slater, no Walt. So
that's true. That's true.
You can just line up wherever at that point. God,
so week 4, he had 21 reps against the tackle.
Who was?
That would have been probably Trey or Jamari.
I don't even remember. I think Trey or Jamari. Yes.
Jamari played left tackle. Wow. And in week 14, that number actually climbed to 33.
Whoa.
He only had 13 reps in the B gap that day.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, how many pressures did he have?
He had 6 pressures in week 4, 2 sacks, 1 quarterback hit. So I remember those. Only 4 pressures in week 14 with 0 hits, 0 sacks.
Okay. All right. There we go.
in total on the season last year. He was about 50-50 defensive tackle edge rusher, which I'm surprised. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah. It's crazy that he's also that good at it. I thought it was a joke at first because they had no edge rushers.
Yeah.
And then he's actually just really good at it and a total freak.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
Fartman420. Great name. Also a new member. Shout out there. He says, so how are we feeling about things overall, boys?
I'm a mixed bag because right now Mike Williams retired and Najee Harris has an eye issue and Rashawn Slater has maybe a contract issue. At least doesn't have an extension. So there are some things I'm worried about, but there's some things I'm also like positive about. I at least feel better about like the future of this team with these offensive players and the system and the year 2 and all that.
Yeah.
But like week 1 tomorrow, I'd pick them to lose.
Against the Chiefs, yeah. They're missing some veteran pieces on offense right now, but I am very excited about the young players that are getting opportunities to shine. Robert Mays was talking about kind of like timeline of the NFL signing and veterans and things like that. And what he said is that a lot of teams will they'll get to camp and they'll feel great about their young guys, but then they'll go through 3 weeks of training camp and be like, we kind of need one more piece here. So that's when they'll go sign somebody. So I think we could see the Chargers kind of follow that timeline where let's get all these young receivers, the young backs, let's get them as many reps as we can. And then kind of reassess for week 1 specifically, like what do we need? And if they need another receiver, if they need another running back, they'll go do that at that time. So that's kind of how I assume the Chargers are operating from a roster standpoint.
Yep.
Richard with ears says, I owned a bolo tie for the first and only time in my life because of Rivers. I hope he makes the Hall of Fame. He is so deserving. I've never worn a bolo tie, but I know lots of people who have a bolo tie just because of Rivers.
During that Hall of Fame speech, if he gets there, it won't be first ballot because if it's not Antonio Gates, then it shouldn't be Rivers. No offense. But that's a whole stupid problem. The Gates problem. Anyway, the bolo tie thing, it was just perfect, and it took off. And I think a lot of people bought one. I'll buy one for his Hall of Fame speech. I might go to the Hall of Fame game I'll go to the Hall of Fame game and I'll cry with the rest of you guys because we're all gonna cry. We're 100% gonna cry the second he takes the podium and the highlights go up and he gets choked up. There's 45 kids in the audience start crying too. I'm gonna be sad.
He's not going to be first ballot. I can tell you that because players in that group that will be first ballot include Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, and Greg Olsen, who's one of the best tight ends ever, Jason Witten as well, Frank Gore potentially. So these Hall of Fame classes are getting smaller and smaller. And it's almost like 2 first ballots in each class. They're very, very picky. It's so funny to me to learn about NFL Hall of Fame versus the Basketball Hall of Fame, where Philip Rivers in the NBA is a no-brainer first ballot Hall of Famer. But in the NFL, it's I don't know. So being first ballot ahead of Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald, that's probably going to be a little tough. I mean, Jason Witten was one of the best tight ends for 20 years, and that's probably tough for him, again, because Antonio Gates was not first ballot. So I think he'll get in eventually. I think it's more of a 4th or a 5th ballot kind of thing, but I do think he will get in at some point.
Yeah, I hope he does.
Richard sent in another one with a hot take. I want to replace Darius Davis with a vet wide receiver. His value as a kick returner, punt returner can be replaced. And in his opinion, he brings next to nothing in the passing game.
So last year when Darius Davis was recovering from injury or hurt or playing through injury, the work as a returner was not great, or he just wasn't on active that game. When he was healthy in some of those, there was a 4-game stretch where he had a 40-yard return, punt return, whatever, every single game. So that's still there. I am concerned about the long term with him, but I think A, they don't really have another option right now, and B, I still think he can be pretty good with this team.
Yeah, I still think the good moments are still there as a returner. He was definitely banged up last season. But he still averaged 12 yards per punt return. That's still very, very good, even if it's not 16 like he had when he was a rookie. Didn't get a ton of kickoff returns, but he averaged 27.3, which is up from 22. So I think saying his value as a returner can be replaced is a stretch. Like, can you find other good returners? Sure. I mean, like we saw this team, obviously, DeAndre Carter was a serviceable returner. Andre Roberts was great for those little bits. So could you, I guess, but are you getting the same kind of ceiling? That's probably a no. Like, that's very difficult to find a potential all-pro kind of returner. And that's why he was as a rookie. So his stuff in the passing game, I question really what kind of role he could have in this offense, but he is having some relatively standout moments in the vertical passing game in training camp, had some good games at the end of the season last year. So I'm cool with him, especially now without Mike Williams. Like, he's going to make the roster. And finding an upgrade as a returner is difficult. Can you replace him with a better receiver who can return? Probably. But his value as a returner, I think, is very, very important to this team.
Yeah, I think he'll be safe when all said and done.
Yeah, and Ryan Ficken handpicked him. Like, he's not going anywhere. All right. Almost an hour and a half today. First day of pads, Philip Rivers retirement. Busy day. Richard sent in another super chat right at the bell here. Another hot take. Harris hasn't been to the Bolt at all. There's no good to come of a picture leaking of him with a bandage or an eye patch. I am worried. He has been to the Bolt. That has been happening. He is at meetings. We just haven't seen him practicing. I don't know if he has an eye patch or a bandage, but I think we're on the same page that we will be worried if he's not out there for week 1.
Yeah, give me 2 more weeks. If in 2 weeks they're going, yeah, I'm still praying, then it's pretty much toast at that point.
Such a funny line for, like, Harbaugh's so vague about injuries, and then for this one he's like, yeah, praying for healing.
Yeah, exactly. Fans do a prayer circle, but everybody else is working through something. But for Najee, yeah, please. I guess I also could see, like, because it's a kind of a freak accident and not just an injury, like, you're kind of like, I don't know, praying for the best. I don't know. I'm also praying that this works out okay.
I just don't think we have enough information to be panicking or not. Like,
right.
He is at the Bolt. He is participating in meetings. He is with the team. He's just not practicing. We just don't know what kind of outcome he is, dealing with. Harris is practicing with a cane, Calvin says.
He's doing a film watch with Braille.
Yeah. But like I said, if the injury were like super severe and he lost his eye, he would have retired, guys. Like, you can't play football with one eye.
Has there ever been a player who's played football with one eye, guys? Is that a trivia question?
I don't know. It is a trivia question.
Yeah. Easton Stick played football like he had one eye last year. But I believe they're both functional.
That was good, but mean.
Oh, man.
All right. Fun episode today. That was fun. Felt like we were back in season for a little bit there.
For one padded practice with some guys missing.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, so we're gonna have again a little bit of a different schedule here coming up. Tyler is going out of town to the East Coast for his birthday. Happy early birthday, my friend. Hopefully it's a wonderful trip out to the East Coast for you. So we'll have some like individual videos. Like I said, I'm going to be going to practice on Monday, so I'll have a recap video up then. And then we'll be back live together prepping for the Chargers' first preseason game next Wednesday night. And then we'll have our first recap of the preseason game on Thursday night. So a little bit of a different schedule this weekend, but we will have content coming out for you guys for sure. Okay, that's going to do it for us. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.